The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Over the weekend, I have been following the story out of Thailand of the attempt to rescue the boys and their coach from this flooded cave. Initially, these were boys who were just missing. They were eventually found and found alive. And slowly but surely, some of these boys have started to be rescued. And we are now going to be watching very closely to see what happens. And at the same time, I still remember that when you have a story like this, it becomes a media frenzy. And at the same time, I hate to use a cliche example, but thousands of kids are dying of hunger in Africa every day, and you don't see any Western media coverage of it. So I've been following the story. Elon Musk has gotten pulled in wanting to volunteer a kid-sized submarine and all these different things, and it's become a media sort of phenomenon. But at the same time, I am hyper aware of the sensibilities and biases that make this a story, but not the thousands of kids dying in Africa every day.
Yeah, even if you've been living under a rock, you'd have heard about this story by now.
Yes.
And I wonder why that is, in a sense. I guess it's because it's like a rescue mission. These kids are still alive after all and stand a good chance at surviving this endeavor. Maybe it's because it could happen to just about any of us. Maybe because people worry about, claustrophobia and cave searching and all that stuff. I mean, it is an interesting story.
A lot of the time, it has to do with, does the story have like a discrete beginning, middle, and end, a payoff, a very clear follow-up? And to go back to my example, because this is, as a thought experiment, I often think about it this way. If we go to the thousands of kids dying of hunger every day in Africa, it's ongoing, right? Even if you were to go in and in the same style, if Elon Musk sent, a custom helicopter, like whatever, create an analogy, and you rescue 30 kids and bring them to the U.S. and they're no longer going to die of hunger, right? Which, by the way, you still could in the United States. It's not that there's a lack of hunger in the U.S. The next day, 3,000 more, or whatever the number is, are going to die anyway. So like there's no beginning, middle, and end to the story. It's just not what corporate media covers. That's the way it is. And these stories, like the Thai rescue, expose that. And it gives us an understanding of why it is that other tragedies get zero attention.
Yeah, we also have specific names and specific faces we can identify with with this story. I know with like some of the African charities, they'll send you a picture of someone who you're directly supporting, rather than just saying you're helping thousands of people and we're spreading the money across everyone. They're saying you're helping this person and here's a profile of them. I mean, we can see these kids' faces on TV every day.
Exactly
and
right.
that helps us empathize with the situation.
Now, to discuss some of the logistics of this entire thing, the round trip through the cave network reportedly was thought to take 11 hours, although the first of the 4 boys that were initially rescued came out of the entrance 9 hours after the rescue team went in, suggesting that it's a 9-hour round trip. I don't know how these kids originally even decided to go into this thing, but to who would it occur to actually do this? And I would never even think about going this far into a cave network.
Yeah.
I would just never do it. I don't know what one would be thinking in order to do this.
I know. I think it was part of a soccer team, just like adventure.
Yeah.
And they were trying to do some like team bonding and that sort of thing. I mean,
then the rain flooded the cave.
Yeah, they didn't expect that to happen, but they did screw themselves. I'm just happy that, they're able to at least stand a good chance of surviving now. I think they had to go something like 9 days without contact with the outside world, living in darkness. I mean, that's got to be horrible for your psyche, right?
Yeah, and I read that one of the first thing they did was send down lighting that would sort of mimic night and day in order to try to, number one, have the eyes readjust to light, which can be a big thing when you're brought out, of a cave ultimately, and also for reasons related to melatonin production in the body. Sanity even, yeah. I mean, maybe I'm different than some other people, but I wouldn't do any more than walk like a few feet into a cave that I don't know the structural integrity of, and I'm not with an expert. I mean, it's very, very dangerous stuff. It often, I think, just comes off as adolescent fun to go into caves, but for some reason, it's something that from an early age never appealed to me because I think I just knew the dangers of it because it was something I was kind of scared of. I don't know.
Yeah, but even as a kid, though, if you're led by someone who's 25 years old and you're a soccer coach, would you trust that person to go in, especially if your whole team's going along with them?
In reference to being an 11-year-old, the 25-year-old soccer coach, as far as you know, is kind of an expert, right?
Yeah.
The president of the Philippines, Rodrigo Duterte, has vowed that he would step down immediately if someone can prove to him that God is real, specifically through a selfie. And he has sparked some outrage in the Philippines, which is a very Roman Catholic country, by saying that if just one Christian told him truthfully that they had been to heaven and had a conversation with God, that he would quit. And he also attacked the Catholic Church for collecting funds from members and said that it uses donations to maintain luxurious places and things that most of humanity don't have, saying if you're really helping people, why are you asking people for money? 2 weeks ago, the president also angered religious believers by saying God is stupid and a son of a bitch, and questioned certain beliefs such as the story of creation, heaven and hell, and the Last Supper. I'm fine with anyone questioning religious stories. This guy just seems like an authoritarian troll, and I find myself increasingly disgusted with Rodrigo Duterte.
I think that's what this is. I mean, many authoritarian leaders across all time would say that God doesn't exist and try to ban references to God from their countries. Like, you know, even in the 20th century, you could see that with Mao, you could see that with Stalin. Hitler was a Roman Catholic, but it didn't seem as if religion was too involved in his life or in the Third Reich. And you know, I think they're trying to replace religion with the state, in a sense, and make him the God.
That's what a lot of people, I think, don't understand when they... So this is where there's areas where the right is way off about these sometimes pseudo-populist sounding authoritarian regimes. The right gets tons of stuff wrong about it. Where the left sometimes gets tripped up, and this relates to this kind of Leninist enclave of the left that I've identified over the last several years, which includes sort of a fandom of Hugo Chavez and Nicolas Maduro and all the other stuff I've discussed. What the left sometimes misses is that just because a populist-sounding leader seems to want a non-religious state, that doesn't mean that it is secularism in the vein of the progressive philosophy. That's the important thing to understand. Pat is pointing it out, which is they might not want religion, but they might and often do want an authoritarian state entity, which takes the role of religion, or an even stricter, more authoritarian one than you see among some religions. And for some reason, the left misses that a lot of the time and just falls for, oh, it's non-religious, it's great.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I think it's kind of shocking in a sense that it's happening in the Philippines, though, right? Because they're 80% Roman Catholic.
Sure.
They're one of the most religious countries in the whole world.
Yeah.
Like, we live in a very religious country here in the United States, and we would never expect that from our president.
We would not.
It just wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because Rodrigo Duterte is a lame duck. He's just serving one 6-year term. That's how it is in the Philippines.
Yeah,
so he doesn't
everybody's
have to worry
a lame
about,
duck.
Yeah, he doesn't have to worry about getting reelected. He just wants to keep his approval numbers up for one reason or another, but it's still pretty shocking.
Maybe he plans to go back to murdering drug dealers in the streets or something like that when he is finished being president of the Philippines. Hey, remember this story from, I guess it was a couple months ago now, where a man questioned a woman about whether she was allowed to be at a public pool, and he has lost his job. He has taken the name, or is known as ID Adam, and he now has lost his job. The Winston-Salem Police Department confirmed that they received a disturbance call. Or this is a more recent one. This one's actually more, it's from early July. It's not the same incident that we talked about before. At the Glenridge Community Swimming Pool, the caller identified himself as Adam Bloom, said he was chairman of the pool, according to the police report. Officers spoke with him, said he was concerned that a woman identified as Jasmine Abuliman was using the pool without authorization to do so. It ultimately was determined that the woman did have access to the pool, did have an access card, no crime was committed, and it appears as though it was a racially charged incident where the woman's race was actually what catalyzed Mr. Bloom questioning whether she had a right to be there, and he has now lost his job. Some people are saying that this goes against free speech. Others are saying that this is sweet justice and that you can't do this stuff. And I am saying that it is completely unsurprising that this continues to happen time after time after time in the United States of America.
Yeah, I think it is pretty clearly racially motivated, too. I remember with the Permit Patty story we covered a few weeks ago, where a woman told a black 8 or 9-year-old that she couldn't sell water because she doesn't have a permit and called the cops over it. I was thinking, you know, it seems like it's racially charged, but not necessarily. Like if there was a white kid doing the same thing, maybe she would also call the cops.
Maybe.
And there was no like control group to compare it to.
Right.
With this, he's watching over many people at the pool and he only targets the one black woman.
Right.
That's pretty straightforward.
Yes, and it's more straightforward for sure. Although, you know, they can always come up with reasons. They could be, well, no, you know, he recognized everyone else at the pool, but he didn't recognize this woman. So it wasn't on the basis of race. It was on the basis that he simply didn't recognize the woman. And then, of course, we could say, well, is that what it is? Or is he only paying attention to whether he does or doesn't recognize someone because of their race? You can never prove it. And as the right often likes to say, you can't know for sure what's in someone's head. But that's not a defense of any action whatsoever. And here it's had a repercussion that some people like and others are sort of concerned with.
You think he should have been fired from his day job?
It's not my place to say. You know, what I can say is it was well within the rights of his employer to say, this is not someone with a contract, this is not someone with tenure, and so we have made the business decision as a business operating in the free market that supposedly exists to say we don't want to be associated with this person anymore, and that's absolutely something they can do. They're not doing it on the basis of his race or nationality or religion or whatever else. They can do it. Good for them.
It's kind of like a new phenomenon. I mean, obviously people have been singled out for their race for a long time, but just like the public shaming of the perpetrators and, you know, repercussions like losing your job, even getting kicked out of somewhere, that seems like it's new in a sense because we can capture it a lot more easily with social media and we can spread these videos around. So it's some poetic justice.
That's actually interesting. You still can't figure out what's in someone's head, but you now much more easily will have video evidence of how it all went down. And that, I think, makes people much more comfortable making an assessment of what it appeared like the person was thinking when they did some of these things. So, yeah, I think social media has made a major, major difference. We've got a full week of shows for you this week, so I'm glad you're with us. Welcome to all of our new members and patrons who have access to the bonus show, as well as other member benefits, and we will have a brand new show and bonus show tomorrow.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.